Let me ask you something. What if your portfolio wasn't just a collection of lottery tickets you're hoping will pay off? What if it was a machine, a calibrated, self correcting machine designed for one single purpose? You see, today we're not talking about trading. We are exploring a radical shift in perspective, moving away from the emotional roller coaster of the market and toward the cold, hard logic of engineering a financial system. And that right there is the core idea, the hook that just challenges one of the most fundamental beliefs in modern investing, the idea that cash is safe. The thinking here isn't about being reckless, it's about being radically efficient. It's about building a system that is so robust that holding a decaying asset like cash is no longer a safety net, it's a critical performance drag. So, what's the engineering principle that makes this all work? Well, it's something called a closed loop system. The easiest way to think about it is your thermostat at home, right? It senses the temperature in the room, that's its own output, and it uses that information, that feedback, to turn the heat on or off. It's a self-correcting process. It doesn't need you to tell it what to do. We're going to take that exact same logic and apply it to a portfolio. And this really gets to the heart of the mindset shift. On one side, you have trading. It's emotional, it's reactive, and let's be honest, a lot of the time it's just gambling. But on the other side, you have the clean blueprint of engineering. It's all about logic, process, and control systems. We are planting our flag firmly in the engineering camp. Now, here's a really important distinction. The money in this system, it's not your grocery money. It's not for survival. Its purpose is what the system calls capital acceleration. It's fuel for step function life upgrades, a down payment, starting a business. And that distinction is absolutely key because it allows you to have a higher tolerance for volatility and it demands a much, much deeper conviction in the process you've built. So that brings us to the core philosophy. To build a system that intentionally holds zero cash, to throw away the market's main safety blanket, you need a really, really powerful reason. So why would you go all in? And here's that reason, laid out plain and simple. On the left, you've got the problem you just can't escape, fiat decay. Cash is a melting ice cube. It's a guaranteed loss of purchasing power year after year. So what's the only logical solution? It's over on the right. You have to own productive capacity. You have to own a piece of the actual engines of GDP growth. Because really, the only true hedge against the decay of money is to own the very machines that force more of it to be printed. Okay, so if we're gonna build a machine, we're gonna need a blueprint. Let's take a look at the actual architecture, how this thing is designed to be tough, no matter what the market weather is doing. So you see, it's not just a random pile of stocks. It's a layered structure where every single part has a specific job to do. At its very heart, you've got the core conviction layer. That's the primary growth engine, maybe concentrated in something transformative like AI and semis. Then, to protect that core, you have a geopolitics hedge with things like defense stocks. For stability, you layer in some defensive compounders. Think of these as the slow and steady steel beams of the whole structure. And finally, to capture that massive upside, you have these carefully sized frontier and speculative layers. Every part has a purpose. Nothing is left to chance. Any good engineer is obsessed with finding single points of failure. And this system is brutally honest about its own. And it's a big one. Taiwan. With so much of that core growth engine built around the island's semiconductor industry, it represents a massive, undeniable risk. So, is that a catastrophic bug? A fatal flaw in the design? Or is it a feature? And this is where the philosophy gets incredibly bold. The argument goes like this. If Taiwan falls, the entire modern world, the global economy as we know it, fails with it. And you just can't hedge against the apocalypse. So instead of trying, the system makes a deliberate, high-conviction bet on the survival of civilization itself. And this whole bet rests on what's called the Silicon Shield thesis. The logic is that as the world's dependence on Taiwan's completely irreplaceable advanced chips grows stronger every day, and as China's own tech falls further and further behind, the economic cost of an actual war becomes catastrophically high for everyone, including China. So in this view, every day that passes just makes that shield stronger. Okay, so we've seen the static blueprint. Now let's get into the dynamic part, the engine. We're going to look at the hydraulics and the traps that actually run this system day to day. This is how the machine actually operates. First off, how do we add new parts to the machine? Well, it's not by chasing things out of FOMO. The system uses something called the Sentinel mechanism. You don't chase prices up. You figure out what a fair price is, you set a trap, and then you just wait for the market to walk right into it. It's designed to completely separate your emotions from the act of buying. And here is that disciplined process. Step 1, you calculate a fair value based on logic, not hype. Step 2, you set the trap. That's a price alert, and you attach a note to your future self reminding you why you liked it in the first place. Step 3, and this is so important, when that alarm goes off, you don't just blindly buy. You validate. You ask, is the company broken or is the market just scared? And if your original thesis is still intact, then and only then do you execute with conviction. All right, so what happens when the market crashes, when everything is red? This right here, this might be the most elegant part of the whole design. A normal investor starts to panic, right? They're looking for that dry powder, that cash on the sidelines. This system doesn't need it. It has its own internal hydraulics to create liquidity whenever it needs it. The key insight is that during a crash, not everything goes down by the same amount. Your shields, those stable defensive assets, they might only be down, say, 10%. But your swords, your high-conviction growth assets, they could be down 50% or even more. The system sees this imbalance as a huge opportunity. Your shields held their ground, while your swords just went on a massive fire sale. And that is the shields to swords rotation. You trim just a small piece of what held up well to create cash inside the system. Then you take that liquidity and you use it to buy more of those high-quality growth assets that are now super cheap. You're repressurizing the system, basically selling relatively high and buying relatively low, all without needing a single dollar from the outside world. Okay, finally, we come to the feedback loop. I mean, how does any good machine learn and get better over time? How does it calibrate itself? It's not just about taking profits or cutting your losses. It's about making sure you never forget the lesson. So how does a machine, this unemotional, logical system, actually learn from a mistake? It doesn't have feelings. It doesn't feel regret. So it needs something else. It needs a memory. It needs data. And the answer is surprisingly human. The system learns by preserving its scars. It builds a memory by making its failures visible and permanent. Just imagine opening your portfolio and seeing this, a 90% loss. The immediate human reaction is to get rid of it, right? To delete it, hide the mistake, pretend it never happened. But this system does the exact opposite. When a thesis is just proven dead wrong and a position collapses, you sell almost all of it. But you keep a tiny little piece, maybe just $10 worth. That position, sitting there in your portfolio forever with that glaring red minus 90%, it becomes what's called a $10 monument to hubris. It is a very cheap but incredibly valuable permanent reminder to stay humble, to check your ego, and to always respect the market's ability to prove you wrong. So let's bring this all home. When you stop thinking like a trader and you start acting like an engineer, your entire relationship with the market, and especially with volatility, it just fundamentally changes. It all comes down to the 4 phases of the machine. You have the construction phase, where you build the architecture. You have the input phase, using the Sentinel mechanism for your entries. You have the process phase, where you maintain the system with that zero cash hydraulic rotation. And you have the feedback loop, where you learn from your scars. It's a complete closed-loop system. And so we'll leave you with this question to think about. If you truly adopted this engineering mindset, if you stopped seeing your portfolio as a collection of lottery tickets and started seeing it as a calibrated machine designed to perform under pressure, would you still fear volatility? Or would you finally start seeing it for what it really is, the very fuel that makes the engine run?